Hey class, my name is Jordan Green. I'm currently in school for my AA degree, but I'm going to transfer to UCF to get a double major in veterinary medicine and conservational biology. I am also a novice researcher because I've done some research for previous courses in years past, but this is the first time I've ever taken a research course. So the title of my paper is From Superman to Endgame: How Superhero Films Have Shaped Western Pop Culture. And the main topic of my paper was to dissect exactly how superhero films have shaped Western pop culture over the years. My thesis statement is superhero films have had a large impact on Western pop culture because of how they have evolved to fit modern times, how audiences relate to the film's challenges, and how studios cast major actors to play these characters. As a researcher, there was a lot that drew me to my topic. As an avid comic book and superhero movie fan, I've always been able to see that these characters and films have had such a big impact on our culture. And I just thought it would only make sense to write my paper on just that. I was also drawn to this topic because it had a lot of potential. I think I could have taken this essay in a lot of different directions, and to me that was just very exciting. I love being able to see so much potential in stuff like this and such a cool topic and in different essays. So the main parts of my paper were that superhero films evolved to fit modern times, how audiences relate to the film's challenges, and how studios cast major actors to play these characters. There was an incredibly large amount of importance for each chosen point, so I'm just going to dive into each of those points individually. So for my first point, how superhero films have evolved to fit modern times, this is a direct piece of evidence that the films have had a massive impact on Western pop culture, just in general. I really needed this in my paper because it explains why these films are even still relevant and how they manage to stay relevant no matter what's happening in the world. This also explains how the films manage to stay in people's interests. If the films can't keep up with what people like, no one is going to watch them. And then if no one watches them, then they're going to fall out of our culture and start to mean less within our culture. My second point, how audiences relate to the film's challenges, is very similar in some ways to the first point, but it dives much deeper because it deals with people's emotions. With this point, I had to dive into what the films mean to people individually and how that can determine what films stick and what films don't. No matter what, people are going to look for themselves in every character, whether that character is a good guy or a bad guy. And I needed this to show the emotion that's involved with my main point. Cultures really aren't going to shift or be impacted without an emotional tie-in or an emotional reason to. And for my third point, third and final point, how studios cast major actors to play the characters in the films. This takes a similar route to the second reason, but in a very different way. It also deals with a big reason why people are going to see these films in the first place. I mean, if you cast a big actor, and especially if it's someone's favorite actor, they're more likely to go see that film. Actors sell a movie just from being in it, especially if they're a really famous actor. That alone was almost enough for me to put it in my essay. I mean, people have to see the film, so you're gonna want to cast an actor that people know and that people like so that you can get their attention and get them to see that film. I mean, that's how people make references to the characters or even the movie itself. The actors playing these characters can have a huge impact on our culture. And if someone else had played Iron Man in the MCU, I don't think any of us would have cried as hard as we did at the end of Endgame. So the source that I thought was most helpful in my essay was the Vanity Fair article that discussed the story of #Release the Snyder Cut. That gave me the absolute best example of how social media absolutely dominates not only people's interests, but dominates the entire film industry itself, which both of those were sub-points in my essay. It detailed that if people want something bad enough, no matter how impossible that goal might seem, they're going to get it, especially if they're using social media to their advantage. So for my research challenges, I didn't really think I had any. It was pretty easy to conduct research for this, and this topic was really easy just to get research for because it's talking about such a massive industry that has a lot of voices in it already. And I didn't really have any real challenges when conducting my research for this. I mostly used web articles for my essay, as these were just, the easiest to get to and the most readily available to me. A lot of them were primary sources because my essay covered such a large time frame. It was just easier to get a lot of primary sources, but I also used some of them as secondary sources. And my essay had just covered a larger amount of time than most other people's did. And in order to find all of my sources and everything, I checked everywhere online. I used Valencia's database and library and everything, and then I just checked all over the internet in order to find the best articles from people that knew, what they were talking about, and they were actually avid fans of what they were writing about, and the superhero films and the characters and even the comics and stuff. But so thank you all for listening, and have a good night.